Anxiety does not mean you are weak. It means your mind has learned the wrong lesson. Every time your heart races before a difficult conversation, every time your stomach tightens before a decision, every time fear tells you to delay, avoid, or escape, your brain believes it is protecting you. But protection is not the same as courage. 400 years ago, Japanese warriors faced a truth most people still avoid. Fear never disappears, and waiting for it to disappear is how lives shrink. The samurai were not fearless men. They were anxious, aware, and fully human. The difference was simple and brutal. They trained themselves to move with fear, not against it. Today, anxiety shows up differently, not as a sword in front of you, but as a meeting you avoid, a conversation you delay, a life decision you keep postponing. And every time you retreat, your mind learns one thing: avoidance works. That lesson is what turns anxiety into a prison. The ancient Japanese understood this deeply, and they built a method to reverse it. Not therapy, not affirmations, not motivation. A method that retrained the nervous system itself. A system designed to eliminate anxiety by replacing it with courage, not overnight, but permanently. This is Stillness and Direction. This channel is about ancient systems that build modern strength. No hype, no shortcuts, only what survives pressure. If anxiety has been quietly running your decisions, subscribe. And if you're ready to hear something uncomfortable but real, like the video, not for the algorithm, but as a promise to yourself. Now listen carefully. The Japanese never tried to calm fear. They trained action despite fear. Because courage is not a feeling, it is a skill. And skills are built, not wished for. They called this approach many things: kaizen, fudoshin, gambaru. Different words, one principle. You expose yourself to discomfort in controlled doses, consistently, until fear loses its authority. Not because it vanishes, but because it stops controlling behavior. This is the ancient method that eliminated anxiety at its root, not by fighting the mind, but by retraining it through action. In the next section, you'll meet a young warrior facing paralyzing fear. You'll see why avoiding fear trains anxiety, and how the samurai reversed that process step by step. The young warrior's name was Haru. He was skilled, strong, respected. But when battle came close, something inside him collapsed. His breath shortened, his hands trembled, his mind flooded with images of failure and death. So he did what most people do. He avoided. He volunteered for support roles. He delayed direct confrontation. He told himself he would be ready next time. And each time he stepped back, his anxiety grew sharper. His master noticed immediately, not the fear, the pattern. One evening, the master asked him a simple question: "When did your fear become stronger?" Haru answered honestly, "When I started avoiding it." The master nodded. "Then you have trained it well." That sentence changed everything. The Japanese understood something modern people rarely accept. Anxiety is learned behavior. Every time you escape discomfort, your nervous system records a lesson. This was dangerous. Avoid it again. Fear is not reduced by safety. It is reinforced by it. So the master did something unexpected. He did not reassure Haru. He did not motivate him. He did not explain fear away. He assigned Haru to the smallest possible confrontation. Not battle, not risk, exposure. Every morning, Haru had to step forward in the training line. Not fight, just step forward. His heart raced, his body resisted. But nothing bad happened. The next day, he stepped forward again. Then he was told to speak first. Then to train in front of others. Then to take controlled hits. Each task was uncomfortable, but survivable. This was the method. The Japanese never tried to remove anxiety directly. They replaced avoidance with evidence. Evidence that fear does not equal danger. Evidence that discomfort can be endured. Evidence that action does not lead to collapse. Over time, something critical changed. Haru still felt fear, but fear no longer dictated behavior. This is how courage is built, not by feeling brave, but by acting while afraid. The nervous system learns through experience, not logic. You can tell yourself you're safe all day. Your body will not believe you. But survive discomfort repeatedly and belief becomes automatic. This is why ancient courage training worked. It didn't rely on mindset. It relied on exposure without escape. And this is why anxiety disappears, not because fear is gone, but because fear loses its authority. In the next section, you'll learn the exact structure the Japanese used to control exposure, why too much courage training fails, and how discipline, not intensity, kept anxiety from returning. The Japanese were careful with fear. Not gentle, precise. They understood something most people get wrong. Too much exposure breaks people. Too little exposure traps them. So they built a structure. Fear was never confronted randomly. It was measured. Haru did not jump from avoidance to bravery overnight. That would have destroyed him. Instead, his master followed a strict rule. Discomfort must be slightly higher than yesterday. Never overwhelming, never comfortable. This is where most people fail today. They either avoid fear completely or they try to face everything at once. Both reinforce anxiety. Avoidance teaches the nervous system that fear is dangerous. Overexposure teaches it that fear is uncontrollable. The Japanese chose a third path, controlled repetition. Every task Haru faced followed three conditions. First, it had to trigger fear. Second, it had to be survivable. Third, it had to be repeated until fear weakened. This repetition was critical. Fear weakens only when the nervous system sees the same threat and survives it multiple times. One success is hope. Repeated survival is rewiring. This is why motivation was irrelevant. Some days Haru wanted to train. Some days he didn't. It didn't matter. The exposure happened regardless. Because courage is not built on mood. It is built on consistency. Over weeks, Haru noticed something unsettling. The fear no longer spiked as sharply. His breath stabilized faster. His thoughts slowed sooner. Nothing external changed. What changed was familiarity. The mind fears what it does not understand. Familiarity removes mystery. Mystery fuels anxiety. This is why the Japanese repeated the same exposure again and again, not to prove strength, but to remove novelty. Once fear becomes familiar, it stops feeling like a threat. And when fear is no longer a threat, it loses its grip. This is the hidden reason discipline matters. Not discipline as punishment, discipline as repetition without negotiation. Haru was not becoming fearless. He was becoming predictable under pressure. That is real courage. In the next section, you'll learn how the Japanese trained the body to support this process, why posture and breath mattered more than positive thinking, and how physical control stabilized the anxious mind. The Japanese never separated the mind from the body. They knew something modern psychology is only now rediscovering. An anxious body creates an anxious mind. So courage training was never only mental, it was physical. Haru's master corrected his posture before correcting his thoughts. Straight spine, grounded feet, slow, controlled breathing. At first, this seemed unrelated to fear. It wasn't. When fear rises, the body collapses forward, breathing shortens, muscles tighten. The nervous system prepares to escape. The Japanese did the opposite. They trained the body to remain open and grounded under stress. Haru was taught to breathe slowly even when fear surged, not deep, dramatic breaths, quiet, steady ones. This sent a signal upward. I am not in danger. Not through words, through physiology. This is why the method worked. The brain listens to the body more than it listens to thought. If your posture says panic, no affirmation can calm you. But if your body remains stable, the mind follows. This is why samurai trained stances for hours, why monks practiced sitting before philosophy, why breath was corrected before courage was discussed. They were training state control, not emotion control. Haru began to notice the difference. Fear still appeared, but it didn't hijack his body anymore. His hands stopped shaking first, then his breath, then his thoughts. This order matters. Most people try to calm thoughts first and fail repeatedly. The Japanese started with the body and let the mind settle naturally. This is also why anxiety returned for so many people today. They face fear mentally, but their body is still in escape mode. The method was incomplete. Courage requires alignment. Body, breath, action, all three together. In the next section, you'll see the final piece of the method, why anxiety returns when identity doesn't change, and how the Japanese made courage permanent by redefining who someone believed they were. The Japanese knew something that most people never confront. You can reduce anxiety temporarily and still remain an anxious person. That is why fear comes back, because behavior can change without identity changing. Haru was no longer avoiding discomfort. He could stand under pressure. He could breathe through fear. But his master wasn't satisfied. Your actions have changed, he said, but who you believe you are has not. This was the most dangerous stage, because when identity stays the same, old patterns always return under stress. So the training shifted again. Haru was no longer treated as the anxious one. No reminders of his past hesitation, no special allowances. He was expected to act like a courageous man before he felt like one. This was deliberate. The Japanese understood that identity is not discovered, it is assigned through expectation. When people expect little from you, your nervous system relaxes into weakness. When people expect strength, your system adopts upward. Haru was given responsibility. He led drills. He stood in front. He made decisions. Not because he was ready, because readiness comes after responsibility, not before. At first, the anxiety returned, but something was different. Avoidance was no longer an option. And when avoidance disappears, fear has nowhere to hide. Slowly, Haru stopped seeing himself as someone overcoming fear. He became someone who acts. This distinction is critical. If you identify as someone fighting anxiety, anxiety remains part of you. If you identify as someone who acts despite fear, fear becomes irrelevant. This is why the Japanese never spoke about confidence. They spoke about duty. A duty-focused identity does not wait for emotional permission. It moves. Once Haru accepted this identity, his nervous system stabilized. Anxiety still appeared occasionally, but it no longer defined him. This is how courage becomes permanent, not by eliminating fear, but by removing fear's role in decision-making. In the final section, you'll see how this ancient method applies to your life today, why modern anxiety is harder but follows the same rules, and how to begin applying this system without becoming extreme or reckless. The ancient Japanese method was never about becoming fearless. It was about becoming reliable under fear. That is the distinction most people miss. Anxiety feels powerful because it controls behavior. The moment behavior stops obeying fear, anxiety weakens. Not emotionally, neurologically. The samurai did not wait to feel courageous. They acted in small, controlled ways until courage became normal. This is how the method applies to your life today. You do not eliminate anxiety by understanding it. You eliminate it by disobeying it consistently. Not recklessly, not dramatically, precisely. You expose yourself to discomfort just beyond your comfort zone. You control your body when fear appears. You repeat the same exposure until it loses novelty. And you act as the person you intend to become before you feel like them. This is not self-help. This is nervous system training. Modern anxiety is harder because avoidance is easier. You can delay emails, avoid conversations, scroll instead of decide, distract instead of act. And every time you do, anxiety grows stronger. The Japanese method removes that option. Not all at once, but permanently. You don't ask, how do I feel? You ask, what is the next correct action? And then you do it, with fear present, but irrelevant. Over time, something irreversible happens. Fear stops signaling danger. It becomes background noise. Your body learns, I can handle this. That belief does not come from words, it comes from evidence. This is why courage is rare. Not because it's impossible, but because it requires repetition without escape. Most people want relief. This method offers strength. Most people want comfort. This method offers stability, and stability outlasts every feeling. If anxiety has been shaping your decisions, you don't need to fix yourself. You need to retrain yourself. Start small. Stay consistent. Remove avoidance. Let fear show up and move anyway. This is stillness and direction. Not calm through avoidance. Not confidence through belief. Courage through action.